We got Kelly and John. Yes. But
Are we live?
is somebody supposed to,
Okay,
are
we're
we supposed to be
live
dialed
now.
in here? Okay.
So we are live.
Okay, call to order the November 10th, 2021 special board meeting for Aspen Pitkin County Housing Authority. Cindy, please take the roll.
Francie?
Here.
Rachel?
Here.
David?
Here.
Carson?
Here.
John?
Present.
Kelly?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, did I miss anybody? I know Allison's out, and Skippy's, don't see Skippy.
I think I heard a voice message from him when I called the other day that he was going to be gone for a few
Okay.
days.
I think he said he was going to join by Zoom, so
Yeah, we'll see if he can get in.
see if he gets in. Okay, so first item on the agenda here is public comment. Is there anyone on the phone that would like to make public comment? If so, please unmute yourself. And we'll give it just a minute here for GrassRoots. Okay, going once, going twice. We will move on to the executive director's comments and a staff update.
Good evening, everyone. I've had a great first nearly month, so thank you all for that. I've met with a lot of you one-on-one, and there's a couple of you I'm still trying to track down, so you can't escape, so we'll have a little chat. So thank you very much for that. And the one thing I just wanted to flag at the top was we are sitting down with Karen Harrington and Andrew Miller from our staff, and we're going over Home Track and how it works in a couple different ways, both with mostly on a focus on the outward facing, the community side of it, both to reduce costs and increase user ability. And then internally, as part of that, we're also going to be moving towards, as quickly as we can, really maximizing the use of Home Track, particularly reducing use of paper. So that's kind of an initial focus point we're going to be looking at. And then I want to review how we communicate with the public, and that's going to be an ongoing effort as well. Diane, do you have anything between blanks? Sorry.
I will just add, I've really appreciated how quickly Matthew's come up to speed, lightning fast, and thanks to, and I've been spending time with them, but mostly Cindy and Bethany are doing the lion's share of the training, so thank you so much for that.
And I just have a couple of staff updates, just to remind people to make sure that they've signed up for notifications. We will, on Friday afternoon, be listing a Category 1 two-bedroom at Smuggler Mountain Apartments. And we will be adding an ownership opportunity. It's a two-bedroom at Category 4 at Highlands Villas. So those are the two that we're adding. And just to give everybody a heads up, we have been meeting with a gentleman from representing the ski company. Because of lack of housing, they want to try to do incentives for people to rent out rooms. Our concern is that we have to maintain some type of it's not, our properties, or the deed restriction doesn't allow for income producing properties. We also want to be able to not only allow, or if it's something that is doable, we want it to work for any employer out there that might want to do this. It wouldn't be this year, we're still trying to work it out, but we will bring something, when we have kind of a pilot program that we can bring forward to you, we will do that.
So you mean rent out APCHA rooms in APCHA housing?
Yes, yeah, it'll be ownership housing. So it's kind of, because people probably say, well, I don't know if I want to rent out a bedroom this winter or not. If you give them maybe a little bit of incentive, maybe they will do that. Maybe they will decide, that's a good idea, I can get this, and it's just for the this winter months, and it'll work out. So, but we're trying to make sure that we're still within our the regulations, and that it's still a qualified employee. It has to be a qualified employee. So we're looking at different mechanisms for that. Not only with the ski company, but for any other employer who might want to do something like this.
So it's not for guests, ski guests?
It's
just
not for
employees.
guests. You have to be working in Pitkin County.
Phew.
Kelly,
Okay.
did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would just note that Telluride, I think, has had a program or tried a program with their ski company, which they called Tenants for Turns. And the ski company offered ski passes in exchange for replacement of tenants. So I don't know if that kind of in-kind trade would be considered income for APCHA, but they might reach out to their counterparts in Telluride for ideas.
And I believe that that's where they got the idea, Kelly, because he called it the same thing. So I'm pretty sure that's kind of where they got the idea. So, but it's not just possibly a ski pass, but it might be a couple of other incentives that they can use at like some of their restaurants, like at the Limelight or something like that, in case somebody doesn't ski. So it's kind of a mixed bag is what we're trying to look at. So, but yes, thank you.
And on Monday, APCHA did send out, thanks to the team, sent out a notice to our current owners that said, hey, just a reminder, you can rent a room.
Thank you so much, because I had a citizen email that I had gotten lost in my inbox, and I just saw it a few days ago and responded and told her I'd bring it up at this meeting. And it's just right on this topic, Cindy, of saying that we should have a page right up front that we can hand people that's in the guidelines or something of how an owner can rent and what the process is. And it's in there, but it's a little different sections, and this person was really unclear, and this is actually the second person who's asked me this. How much can I really rent the room for? Is it a pro rata share of the maximum rent or what? But they don't know that. And can I add utilities? Are utilities included? You know, all these things. And then how do I get them qualified? And what's the minimum lease? And we should just have a page that offers that right up front, and that they don't have to dig through to find out the information about how to rent.
And this email blast that was sent out on Monday kind of had a door tag on it, and it did list some of that. But it also said, contact us to get some more information on it as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And
So-
then, again, just to have it in our regulations when people pick those up or when they're first buying would be really helpful.
And these folks have actually had Slate Communications create a step-by-step flyer as well.
Yeah,
And I just forgot to get feedback
Yeah.
back to you on that. So.
yeah, that's great. That's really appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got some technology issues. I think we're just gonna take a pause here for GrassRoots. But just let the record reflect that Skippy has joined the meeting.
And there's pizza.
And there's pizza.
So this is an example, and there are only 13 of the 36 homes, $125,000 replacement, all-in cost on it, that we would go above the category, and this is where staff would recommend that you do buy down that. Now, the board may decide as we go through this that you want to buy them down more than that. But what I think what is interesting to me when I kind of went through all the math and the spreadsheets that are on the final, that are in the appendix or the report that Matthew and Bethany worked on, was when you look at this, those 13 homes that are above, if we put a new home on them, the maximum outlay, that maximum liability there is about $500,000. That's if every one of those got a new building and you wanted to buy it down.
Okay, I'm confused because you're just saying it's $229.30
It is,
per.
correct?
And if there's 13 of them, how did you get down to only $500,000?
Because that's the most expensive. There are some,
Oh, that's the single most
that's the
expensive one.
single most
Okay, I
expensive
gotcha, I
one.
gotcha.
And so there are
Okay,
some in
okay.
those 13 where we only go $20,000
Okay.
above the maximum category value.
You know, I think the one thing that really is important to acknowledge is that if we're talking about funds we don't really have allocated yet.
Mm-hmm.
But if we do have that, and we should, and I'm supportive of it, as you've heard me say before, we have to acknowledge it's not going to be self-replenishing. And some people would like to think that on each new turn it will somehow replenish itself. and it's not. Some of this is going to be sunk cost, period.
Well, going forward, that should be a budget item for APCHA. It might be I hate to use the word slush fund, but some kind of fund, $1 million, some number that's in our budget that says,
Yeah.
we're going to buy down a deed restriction. We're going to do something. It may not be spent every year, but yeah, I agree, Rachel. It's lost. I wouldn't call it lost money. It's invested funds in the program.
It's sunk money, and John, I agree with you very much on that. And the next question I was going to ask Diane and Matthew is to start thinking about coming up with a rough number of what would be, because these are rolling sales. It's not like all of Woody Creek's going to sell at once, or things like that. But a number that we can start to use when we have our housing retreat next, this beginning of December, and we're talking about how we finance lumberyard and things like this. And the one footnote I gave to our facilitators is I'm happy talking about any single project and how we get it going and things like that. If there's so many topics under housing, as long as we don't start allocating all the money without realizing there's other needs within our bailiwick here. So that's my only other comment. Thank you.
And Rachel, I appreciate that. I can tell you, having done a really deep dive, and a lot of credit to the team on this. We collectively all did a deep dive, and remember, we had extra time to do this one.
Right.
It was hard to come up with these numbers, so coming up with that number, I understand it
I
would
know.
be helpful.
Even if it's just a plug number to start, or
That's
something.
$5 million.
Okay, there we go.
Skippy?
Thanks. So, Diane, so there's 13 properties that supersede the category max that total roughly $500,000. How many units are below, and how much are they below that in aggregate?
So Skippy, if you jump to the last page of the packet, this might be the easiest way to, there's a spreadsheet there, and I
saw it.
And it's a little hard. I look at it now. I can't even possibly read that. I'll tell you. So
I read it. I guess the question I was trying to get at, and I thought maybe you'd have numbers, is just should we be averaging these out? So if it's $500,000 of overages, but and I'm just making this up now. If the 19 units that are below that number are $1 million under, should we be adding half the difference to each of those so that we get to zero overall?
it's a cool concept, Skippy, but I think there is a lot of value, to David's point, in maintaining different price points within the category. Your idea is a good one because it basically could result in APCHA not having any financial liability in this. But the result would be that you're going to end up with a bunch of properties at the same price.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what you'd end up with eventually. So I just wanted to know. So we're not. Staff is not suggesting that, and the reason to not suggest that is that there'll be more cost differentiation, and we see that as a good thing, recognizing that the trade-off is that those dollars can't go into maintenance and upkeep elsewhere, new unit development elsewhere, whatever else. We think that that's the right balance.
Yep. And remember, right, we could see like 1 or 2 properties a year, especially if we don't roll this out as a replacement program.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How much more do you want to tackle tonight?
I'll just
I do have
comment on Skippy's. Skippy, I think that's a great idea, and maybe it's something that could work in an average if you said, okay, let's take 2 of these 12 units up to the maximum and use that overage balance to help reduce the subsidy necessary in the entire thing. But I really agree with the prior comment from David and others about the affordability of the program. And that's where, even looking at it now, where one of those mobile homes could sell for $140,000 to somebody willing to take it on, that makes a big difference to people, to have different price ranges and to have everything go up to the max. I think it'd be an interesting experiment for all of us as we look at the outcome of this, to say at 3% interest, appreciation, simple, how quickly do those mobile homes become million-dollar homes? I mean, that would be worth a look to say where is that going once we've established that.
Right.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that is what we should do. I was just curious if we had considered that and what it would look like, because I haven't run the numbers, right? I mean, maybe you have to bring them all to max to do that. Maybe you only have to add $10,000 to sale price for each one to do it. I just wondered if it was considered. So that's all. I do have a few other questions, but you guys tell me when those fit in. I want staff to finish your presentation first.
Actually, I think if the chair's okay, I think it's actually better to keep this slower pace, because there are, right, the next piece is another big piece, and then another big program piece.
Skippy, did you have some?
So go ahead, is what you're saying?
Yeah, please. Sorry, long.
Yeah.
phrase there.
Oh, okay. So it's just about the pilot in general. And first, I just want to say, like, thank you so much. This is a big, hairy thing, and you guys have really jumped in and given us something real. And I just want to very much applaud you for that, and just say I'm 100% on board with moving forward. And then I just have a question about this representative sample, and if it's and kind of your thoughts around that. So, this is basically an MVP, right? A minimum viable product. It's a recognition that you can't do everything, so you want to scale down what you're doing really small to test it, to work out the kinks before you scale it. But at least in the entrepreneurial universe, the way you think about MVP is like the smallest version of the complete product. So if you're going to build a car, the MVP would not be building a wheel, but it might be building a skateboard, right? And so I just wonder how you guys are thinking about this as a representative group. It stands out as unique and different from a lot of the rest of and I understand why this is attractive, but as stated by Dave, it's all category 5. It's all freestanding and it's all mobile, which is different than a lot of other stuff in our stock. So I just was hoping you could kind of break apart how this is a good representative sample, where it may fall short as a representative sample, and if you think, as John suggested, this plus maybe some one-offs may be able to provide a more representative sample in a way that is useful.
I will do my best to keep it organized and short. As you pointed out, Skippy, right? It's small, it's focused. I actually think you're better off testing category 5 than a category 1. One of the advantages is that if it doesn't work out great, we have not done a lot of damage. Right? Because what we're offering is to take a product that needs to be replaced, that has a depreciation of 27.5 years, that is probably past its useful life, and we're offering what I believe is an opportunity for a significant upgrade. There's obviously some money involved, but if it doesn't work out, or we need to stop it in process, we haven't done great damage to the program or the community. The other piece is, I believe, and this addresses a little bit of the one-off, I believe we will have to make some regulation changes to implement it if you want to implement the reduction in appreciation. I think that needs a regulation change. Now, this is where it's not a good representative, Skippy, is, right? Because it is a mobile home park, so we're not getting that experience of hiring contractors, etc. But that bar, I believe, is so high and such a heavy lift for staff to figure out how that's going to work, that if we can test all the other pieces and then address that one, that could be better.
That makes a lot of sense.
So the one-off, I like the one-off idea. If we don't update the regulations, I don't think we can reduce appreciation. And my guess is Tom could figure out a way to update the regulations for this program, or we get people to buy off on it, or the board just might say, hey, anything that's past a depreciated life, we're not going to reduce appreciation on, right? I think that's going to take us like a full meeting to discuss.
Right.
You know,
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks.
Francie?
I'm wondering how much of a compounding situation this is going, let's say this pilot program really works, and then we go to Smuggler, and we do it there, and then we go to Lazy Glen, and then we go to houses, and, that kind of thing. So I'm wondering what kind of financial, responsibility we're taking on by taking on this, something like this. And I know we have to do the pilot program first, but I'm just wondering, how expensive is this gonna be in the long run, and is it feasible, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, Francie, I think that's a great question, because one of the things that we need to figure out as staff, and I believe we're hiring, the city's hiring a policy analyst. That person is going to report to me, and I believe that person will be involved in helping with all of this. We have to do a math, it's just the math that Rachel just asked for. What is the amount of money to address specifically the first turn problem if the APCHA board believes that people should not be 100% responsible for first turn issues, things that happen before they owned it. So that's where that financial liability lies. And my perspective on all of this is, I don't think the board wants to wait 2 years to see how this went, right? It's a get this going, and then keep working on the this capital repairs program, and roll this out for the rest of the program once we start to feel like we've got our feet under us and we know how it might work, right? I don't think you want to wait 5 years before you want to roll that out. Now it may be very easy once we get it up and running, and once we're talking to the Woody Creek folks and understand how it works, it's probably easier to roll it out in mobile home communities. But I think the thinking is go from pilot and then get as quickly as is reasonable to the big program.
And it really doesn't affect Lazy Glen and Aspen Village. They're RO. There's no appreciation cap on them. So they can sell them for whatever the market will bear.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is fantastic. I mean, the presentation, I'm fully on board with this. I mean, I think this is a great place to start, because I mean, if you look at the flow chart here, and you go down to the middle, should the home be repaired? No. If it's not a mobile home, if it's a townhome or a condo, this is a completely different problem.
Yeah.
Right, and so I think that this is sort of the
Modular
natural place,
home.
modular home place to start.
Modeled.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I think to your point, I mean, we don't want to wait 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. I mean, I think if we want to get something going, I think this is great.
And we may, and I forgot this piece to Francie's question, we may learn that it's not a good idea to take right of first refusal, right? That's a sort of easy one. If it's a really dilapidated mobile home, or a mobile home that's just outlived its useful life. People did a good job of patching holes and stuff, but it needs to be replaced. That's easy. I think this question of when does APCHA take right of first refusal is going to be a really, like, we have to be really careful about that.
I mean, because of people's rights.
It's more about how much responsibility should APCHA take for the problems that have happened in the past.
So from our perspective, we need to be
Yes,
careful
to
about
protect APCHA.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Rachel and then Kelly.
Yeah, thank you so much. On the model that you're doing, I like it too, just like Carson has said. The one thing I'm wondering about, and I don't want to confuse the issue, but does HOA sufficiency play into this at all? Would we be looking at how well-funded Woody Creek is to upkeep its sewer system or things like that, so that we're not investing money into a project and thinking it's good when they have other major $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 repairs that they haven't taken care of yet. So it's just a question, not to be answered now, but is HOA sufficiency any part of this? And then I just kind of wanted to make the point, and maybe somebody else out there can correct me if the history's wrong, but there really was not a lot of public money put into Woody Creek. When I was on the board, I think we spent about $140,000 to help them form a special improvement district, HOA, so that they could take care of some of their remaining issues and fund it and take care of their debt. But they did raise the dues and bought the land and paid for it as it was subdivided, and all the many, many improvements had to have it happen. You know, back in the day, the gas lines ran under all the trailers rather than in the street and out to each trailer. So a lot of things had to be
I
fixed
remember that.
there and fixed for fire access and so on. So, you know, again, I'm just trying to say that there wasn't a lot of public money put into this. This was a partnership by individual homeowners and people who bought these lousier trailers and so on and so forth. And so this is what I talked about in terms of equity with other projects. You know, for us as APCHA or as the Pitkin County and Aspen combined, putting money into a project to maintain the affordable housing at a level that's sufficient for us, when we compare that just with like Phillips Curve down the road, and look how much money you guys are going to be what was it, $9 million to buy the land, you know, to save 60 homes, or how much subsidy we're putting into every new Burlingame 3 unit, $500,000 a unit to be able to sell it to someone for $300,000. The money is real and it's out there, and I don't want to get caught up on how big the numbers are, because they're really big. They always are. But you can't say, well, these guys deserve subsidy so they can get a nice new unit over here buying in Burlingame, and these guys don't deserve a public subsidy because they're buying an old Woody Creek. You know, and that's really what it comes down to, is how are we treating all the properties and all the existing owners who are going to be getting something replaced for them, or maintaining what they have and getting a sales price and a category listing out there at Phillips Curve. You know, how do we maintain the equity? And so there's going to be public dollars needed to be put into these things to have any sort of equity between our citizens.
Well, I'd like to thank you for doing it. It's a great start. It's a wonderful start. It really reaches way out into the future.
Yeah, and I do want to point out and give the board credit, right? This is built on top of the work that we all have done since April, right? It's a continuation. It was just that aha moment that the team had last week of, like, that it was funny because it was no question whatsoever about what we should come back to with.
Kelly, did you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in a little bit, and Rachel raised some of my concern, just pointing out, you know, Aspen, Lazy Glen and Aspen Village are different because they're the RO market, but Phillips Mobile Home Park, you know, they are category 1s and 2s. And I will just say that they're, you know, I can't know right now if there would be people there interested in such a type of program in the county. We have a load of work to do to hammer out the long-term affordability and planning for that neighborhood. But, you know, I will say, I think that this approach is a smart one. I do think, like, trying to focus a bit on the higher categories means that we have less of a subsidy to go into some of these units, which will help us assess how realistic of the program is. You know, for me, a best case scenario is that we have other neighborhoods saying, what about me? What about me? We want to, you know, we want to address our units, or we want to, you know, invest in the long-term sustainability here, or address the deteriorating nature so that we can assure and protect our housing stock for long-term sustainability. And so I do flag that as a concern. I think this is a good approach to start and to pilot this. It's a very different place than we started, where we were talking about offering inspections and talking about a reduced resale value, which I think I heard feedback that felt a little threatening to people who were like, hell no, I'm not letting you come in. I'm not letting them come into my house. I'm not signing up for that, because I don't want to find out what is going to be known. And I don't want to be told my value is going to be lowered because of it. So I think that this really shows up on the partnering side of the equation, and how APCHA is really trying to partner in this investment over the long term. So I like the direction that we're heading in this iterative process. I think it's getting closer. I hope that, you know, these communities that have been targeted for the pilot program would be interested in this.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Kelly.
And that is an important piece, right? I mean, we're talking about people's homes.
Yeah.
And whatever shows up in the newspaper, right, it can feel weird, and we've not done public outreach, and part of that is we don't also want to set expectations without talking to the board. So we are open to, and at the point at which you, I don't think we're there right now, but maybe in a few meetings or in January, you do direct us to go out and start talking to the community. And at that point, we probably want to bring a couple board members with us too.
Well, I'm confused though, because this isn't necessarily an ask as far as somebody, are you interested in doing this? This is a policy in our deed restriction. Don't we have a right of first refusal to make a decision one way or the other on any property that we manage?
We do. I'm just recognizing that if you live in a community, and Matthew and I were talking about this the other day, that if you live, and many of us on staff have lived, including me, in deed restricted housing, there's always an element of the man, right, the APCHA that owns it. And so even if it's, right, I very much view this as a generous opportunity, and I look at it and saying, if I were in their shoes, I'd want to be part of a pilot program, and it's completely optional because it's only upon a sale. And so I don't think there's anything negative for them, but just the fact that we're talking about them can feel a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just have a couple of really quick things. First of all, you mentioned straw belt. There is one straw belt house in Woody Creek. Second, people may think that there was no monetary money provided on Woody Creek, but in essence there was. We never got any interest. We never charged any interest for all the money that we lost when we loaned it to them to finish the brand new sewer system or septic system that we had to take care of. We also, 5 years we owned that property. We did not charge any staff time. And it was 5 years we worked on that, and no staff time was
I
charged
know
to
the
them.
county staff works.
So there was, so if for somebody to say that there really wasn't any monetary or subsidy to it, there was.
I appreciate
So-
that, Cindy. I really had no idea the APCHA work as
Yeah.
opposed to what the county was working on when I came in there. And that kind of brings me to something I've been thinking about for a while. Is like we really should have a flip book of each project and a little bit of the history. Was this a developer built as mitigation? What year did it come in?
I have paragraphs in an inventory thing that states exactly what it is.
But
It's just not in a book.
Well,
It's just,
but also,
website's
I mean,
good, too.
it'd be
Yeah.
good for the public to see what it is at some point. I mean, maybe it's a future project. But those are the details that need to be remembered when you're not here and I'm not here and no.
Or just add it to the
That's-
HOAs on the APCHA website.
Yeah, or
the
something like that, but
the
there needs
website's
to
a
be
good spot, yeah.
some capture, this was a conversion project from a rental back in so-and-so year. This was, it's just how did they come about? And what public dollars or money was in there? So it's an accurate representation. I'm sure you've seen letters to the editor, Cindy, about how Woody Creek's being treated badly, but, and we never received any public money at all, and you've seen those letters, and it's not accurate, and without that information captured somewhere, we'll lose out. But I guess what I was just going to ask about on your model, the one thing that seems a little funny is that if someone's in the middle category and they can make their repairs and then sell it, or the reduction so that it's escrowed for the new owner to make the repair, or whatever way it goes, versus the one that has to be removed, and they're going to get their full maximum resale value when APCHA offers its right of first refusal, or will that be reduced? Because that's where it's kind of funny. The person who's going to make repairs, who kept their place up somewhat, is going to have their appreciation reduced so they can make more repairs. The guy who didn't do anything, has got to be pulled out, is going to get their maximum appreciation.
Not
Or is that going to be
necessarily.
reduced? Okay, well, that's why I was
And
wondering.
that
So-
is, and Rachel, it's a great question, and I think because we do have a little time left, if the
Yeah.
board's okay, I think it would be good to go through and highlight the other sections, because I
please
think,
do, please
I
do.
think at this point, I don't want to bring you back a new report on the 8th. I think it's just continuing on this one, and you'll have had the opportunity then as board members to digest
More of it, yeah.
what we've done and then come back with questions. Because the next piece is exactly to what you're talking about.
Okay.
Thank you for that. This slide real quick. Thank you, Nicole. And thanks for driving, because I know that's a hard job. This is
Or just somehow capture the money.
this is everything we talked about, this particular slide, and it's in your packet. This is just the numbers representation of what all those paragraphs said. So if you're a numbers person, this one might appeal to you better. Next slide. So, to Rachel's point, thank you, Rachel. That was a fabulous setup. And this is a fundamental policy question for the APCHA board, and it is unique to this program. Should people have reduced appreciation on a mobile home? The IRS says these things after 27 years, they're 27.5 years, they're not worth anything. And I'll lay that question out there, and then let me just walk you through a couple of the appreciation reduction models. So, to take you back real quick, remembering everything I've been talking to you about since basically April, where I was suggesting that you could go from a 3% to a low of a 0.5%. You know, that if we don't want anyone to go upside down from their initial purchase price and you want to give everyone a little bit of appreciation, don't go below 0.5%. That is, first of all, I kept using 2.5%. That was wrong. I should have been using 3%. Secondly, that is effectively an 83, if you go from 3% to 0.5%, that's an 83% reduction in appreciation. We've laid out 3 different models for you. This is the most extreme draconian, however you want to call it. But the worst, this is saying if someone actually willfully did damage to their unit, it's in bad condition. And we would have to come up with objective criteria for what is bad. But it's unlivable. It is, and it has not been touched. In these examples, even if you were to reduce it, 80% reduction in appreciation, all of these people would walk away with some amount of cash. Now, Rachel's pointed out before, we'll have to do the math on, they are paying a resale fee, 2% cost on it. But that's what that model would look like.
Even if APCHA buys it?
Even,
So if they pay that fee to APCHA when they sell their place, even if APCHA buys it, do they still pay that fee?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think they would in the right of first refusal. That's a good point. So that's even a little bit more. So this is that example where a good condition, there's no reduction in appreciation. A decent condition, maybe you're taking away, it means it's not, and right, again, these would have to be objective criteria. And we would give people the benefit of the doubt. But it's in okay shape, but it's not been maintained. On the next slide.
Tom, did you have a question or a point on that?
Yeah, just to not on the appreciation, but on the prior slide on depreciation, by way of explanation. For tax purposes, mobile homes are viewed as personal property and not real property. And in what I'll call the normal world, mobile homes can be moved, right? And you can take your mobile home out of one park and move it to another park where you rent land. And theoretically, at least, the home has the same value no matter where it is. In the Roaring Fork Valley, that model is totally blows up because mobile homes only have the value that they have in the Roaring Fork Valley because of where they're located. And they don't have the kind of distinct and separate value that they might otherwise have in another place. And I just think the depreciation model or consideration doesn't really fit with mobile homes in the Roaring Fork Valley. That doesn't undercut the appreciation analysis at all, but that's just something to bear in mind.
Diane, one thing I've been thinking about a little bit with Woody Creek is the land value should be separated from
Yes,
the mobile
that's what
home
I was gonna
value.
say.
Because there was a specific purchase price that I don't even know what it was of their land value. And to see the land value continue to appreciate would be appropriate in my mind, because it's even gaining far greater value. And like on my property tax bill, even though I'm at Hunter Creek condominium, I get a land value and I get the condo value from the property tax bill. And so I think at some level, the land value appreciates. It's the opportunity for someone to live there, whereas the mobile home depreciates.
Yeah.
And so that might be something that helps separate this out in terms of what's fair to go back to the original owner when they're selling. But I don't know how much further to take it from there. Maybe it's literally like, what was your original purchase price? Plus your land value or something like that. But it's just a
I'm
hypothetical.
gonna say exactly the same thing, and it's, what Tom is getting at is because.
But the
it's not
appreciation
that-
didn't happen on the
it's
mobile home.
Yeah, because it's on the land in the Roaring Fork Valley. It shouldn't depreciate so much because the mobile home depreciated, because the land is way more valuable than the trailer, and I think that's what Tom.
Tom's got some input
Tom
here,
meant.
and then John's got
Well,
his hand up.
yeah, but Rachel, once the home and the land are owned by the same person, again, the model for depreciation falls apart, because they're not, especially here, because the home and the land are not really separable.
Yeah.
Yes, the assessor may do a separate valuation because of for tax purposes under tax law, but these homes, in reality, the homes don't depreciate at all, because the resale price is not controlled by the assessor's office depreciation figures. It's controlled by the maximum resale price and the deed restriction, just like any other property. So they're really not different in terms of housing in our inventory, whether it's a mobile home or a stick-built house. It's really all the same in terms of the actual value for resale purposes.
John?
Well, Tom was kind of saying what I was going to say, but once the property is purged, once that mobile home is purged to the land, for bank purposes as well, for financing purposes, it's a real estate transaction. I think what Diana was getting at was functional use, maintenance of that property. It's still a aluminum rectangle box, right? And so ultimately, this goes back to us deciding what we're going to do with these properties if we take them back, all of them, whether it's a mobile home. To me, we should turn them into modular built construction. A lot of the stuff that's happened out there is the same thing, because some mobile homes will be well maintained and others won't be.
So actually, and thank you, John and Tom, and thank you, because that actually even clarified for me, right? I'm not asking you, like, about the IRS piece. I'm asking you, do you want to, if we do this pilot program, and I actually don't, I think we should run through the reduction potentials instead of having you answer the question today, because this one, there's a lot of thought around it. So two main points are, one is, do you want an appreciation reduction model to be part of this? And there are some pros and cons of that. Rachel brought up one I hadn't thought of, which is, if we're going to require some people to fix their houses, and then if you have a mobile home, you just get to say, okay, we're done, and you don't have an appreciation reduction model there, then you've created an unfair playing field. So if it's okay to run back to the models real quick. So I know this particular slide is visually a little bit confusing. I'll have
have
you,
it in here.
I'll have you focus on the upper left-hand corner. So scenario 1, maximum reduction. Scenario 2 is kind of a middle road.
36.
Scenario 3, upper left-hand corner as you go down the column, lowest reduction. And then if you go across the titles of those 3 tables, decent condition, 50% reduction, these are in red. Bad condition, 80% reduction. In scenario 2, decent is a 25% reduction, bad is a 50% reduction. In the lowest scenario, you take a little bit off for decent, and you take a little more off for bad. These are models for you to look at. There's not a, well, these are logical breakpoints for any particular reason other than to provide you examples. I do want to go back to, this was Matthew's suggestion about having 3 kind of groupings, because it gets us out of that argument for, they're here for later.
Yeah, I know. He was trying to read the one from far away, and I was pointing out there's a screen right behind you.
So these are things I think for our next meeting. They're good things to kind of have you mull over and have some policy discussion. And these would be examples that if you did want to implement something for this program, it's not a bad idea because it gives us the ability to test how do people react, how does it work, do people feel that every bit of that appreciation is their money, right? And this is a particularly hard element of this program.
Yeah.
And yet, many of you, starting back in that survey that we did, and we've heard from members of the public, that is a reasonable proposal, that you don't get 100% appreciation if you haven't maintained your home. And I always go back to David's piece on
Most people do.
most people likely
Right.
do.
Yes.
And I think just to add the distinction that we're making a very clear distinction between neglect and something that is just dated.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the other distinction of people who have moved into something when these standards weren't in place.
Right.
And they bought it because that was
Right.
all that was available. And not holding them to repair 40 years of prior damage.
And that's a good point, right? Because the first turn problem becomes an overlay to this. And we'll come back to that one, because the length of ownership is going to have to be part of that first turn discussion.
John, did you have anything to add, or is that an old hand?
That's a remnant, sorry.
All right.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this chart. Sorry, Jim, you probably can't read this one either.
Move up.
So the 398, that is, okay, so I used the most expensive home, is that the most expensive one?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I used the most expensive one in this because it's the example where if you wanted to keep it within the category and you wanted that to be an APCHA responsibility, there'd have to be some buy down. So this one just, it's a, on the right-hand side, it walks you through basically the question about what the condition the home is in. And then the various boxes shows you how much would be reduced from the owner.
Very clear.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one I redid because I confused myself too much.
It's really well done.
Okay, one second, I'm not as clear just because of what your last
No,
comment
that's
was. And I'm looking just at the bottom example, owner appreciation reduction 113,000, which is 80%, and then over on the red is the public money needed to, okay, but they're different. You know, that's what, it was kind of said as if, so we get the 115 from the owner and that's enough. It's like this needs public money plus the owner's reduction.
It needs public money plus the owner's reduction. And I'm sorry, there are a couple places in here where our numbers changed slightly, so.
I understand how that goes, and the same is true in all three of these examples.
Yeah.
Oh, even with the
Because-
owner reduction of 0% to reduce the price to category, we need 229,000. I mean, I'm looking at the top one.
I think that was the most expensive one.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm still trying to
Right,
understand why there's
because,
public
so,
money
yeah,
needed.
why, this is, thank you, Rachel. Now I remember why I did this chart.
Okay, thank you.
So, and thank you, this is why we need to walk through it. Because this is why a depreciation model could make sense. We talked about if, on the straight up replacing the most, putting a new unit on the most expensive, if you don't do anything to owner appreciation, you need public money. And that's the 229. We need 229. And remember, out of the 13 units where public money would be needed, that is the most.
Yeah.
Now, if you do decide, hey, look, this person really hasn't, something that is in decent condition is going to probably mean it's livable, but people really haven't kept up with the property, right? It hasn't had willful damage, but it's in really rough shape, and it's that question about, should they really walk away with that much money? And so this is where basically, to get to that 229 in the upper left, you're taking $70,000 from the owner, which is the middle yellow square.
Yeah.
Or taking 70,500, and you're adding to it in the far left 158,000 to get to that amount. And you need less money in the bad scenario. Remember, bad is a willful damage to the property.
I'm getting more and more lost on all
You
this.
need less public money
Yeah.
because you're getting more money from the owner who didn't take care of it.
Yes.
It's not just you
You're
need less
buying it
money
at a lesser
altogether.
price.
You just need less public money.
But where I'm getting confused is that the brown column says, is the $398.4 thousand home in good condition? And then the green box says, APCHA buys it for $540,000. I don't understand that.
So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that what you're saying, if you look at like this bottom one.
Yeah.
So is a $398,000 home, and so maybe is that the original price?
Yes.
And
Yes,
and
the
then
original
right,
price.
and then so you had some appreciation because they're getting some, but you're reducing it, and so this is the reduced value in the
Okay,
green
so
box.
this is not the sales price in the brown column.
Correct.
Okay.
This would be the
the maximum?
This would be the maximum resale price, and this
See,
whole.
but then again, it still does, I don't
No,
understand.
that's the original purchase price in the brown column.
Is it the original purchase price by
No.
the owner? No,
No.
it's their appreciated value
It's their
today.
appreciated value.
Right, and that's why, again, I'm not sure why, again, under the yes, that they get no
and-
appreciation reduction, we're still buying the home for
Well,
$530,000.
Here, it's the original purchase price. When you go to this chart,
Oh, I'm
That
I'm
example-
sorry, Rachel.
Well, this is why my
No,
the numbers
Rachel,
aren't
you're
adding
correct.
up
No,
to
you're
me.
correct. I'm sorry. You're absolutely correct. The
numbers just aren't right in the
the
boxes.
base number is 398,000, and they would get appreciation on top of that, which is the 540.
it's their initial purchase price. It comes
Okay,
right-
Yes,
it
you're
comes right
you're
off of
absolutely
here.
correct. It's their initial purchase price. My bad.
Okay, I'm very confused. I need to see this chart redone or in a different way, because I'm sorry, I still just don't get it, why we're buying for $540,000 a home.
Let me,
So-
can I help?
Yeah.
Can I help?
Yeah, but this one is
Each
not
one,
in
this is
bad
the same
shape.
house. This is the same house, the same purchase price house.
Right.
When we go to inspect it, it's in really good shape. So they're gonna get their $398,000 that they paid for it, plus the appreciation that they're due, and that takes it up to $540,000, so that's what we pay them.
That's not what she's telling me. She's telling me this is the appreciated
No,
price.
she's not. she changed it.
Sorry, and
Okay,
the,
she
made
the
a
brown.
mistake.
No,
She changed
Rachel, and you know what, Rachel? You have a very good question, and I want to focus on it for a
Okay,
second.
please.
Your question is, if the home's in good condition, why is APCHA buying it?
Yeah.
And what the assumption on all of these are these are mobile homes that have outlived their useful life. The determination of a good condition in this particular case in a mobile home is, hey, they did everything they could, but this
got
is a
it.
mobile home.
Right, so we're gonna, okay, because this now really takes the public money up a lot from, we're gonna buy out the homes that are in bad condition, replace them with new ones, to we're also gonna buy out the good homes and replace them. I mean, are we replacing all of
No,
Woody Creek?
this is assuming this is an old mobile home that needs to be replaced. The 36, we're only talking about the 36, and remember,
Okay,
this is the worst case example.
yeah.
And I think,
The 40-year-old home that's been taken care of.
Yeah. Again, we can just move on. I agree with the general premise, but this flow chart just doesn't
Okay.
work for me at all.
That's fine.
That's the best way I can say
that's
it.
fine. Is there another slide, Nicole? I don't know if there is. This is another, it may be helpful for you to spend some time with these charts. I mean, you as the board. This is the same data presented in a different way. And so, for example, starting with the first chart, reduction scenario 1, which is that no reduction versus 50% reduction versus bad is 80% reduction, and it lines out how all the numbers work. It just may be if you sit with this chart, it may
Yeah, this chart works for me.
it may
The other
work
one
better.
didn't.
Yep, yep.
At all.
And are there any more slides? Yes, and this, Francie, gets to your question. As we talked about this as staff, we actually do think, like, number one, given that we're talking about Woody Creek, right, 75, is that the number, Cindy?
Yeah.
Units in Woody Creek, yeah.
Roughly.
And at our turnover rate, right, we're talking about, we might see 2 or 3 units in a year, maybe.
Well, people are dying there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
Cindy, different kind of turnover. The,
Turn under.
Sorry. So, it also may be, and this, this is one of those questions for the board. At the point at which you feel like you want to launch this program, this is a question to ask yourselves. Do you want to offer this to other folks who live in the neighborhood who don't want to move and want to upgrade their homes? Technically, they can do this now. One of the things we would look to do as staff is work with Clayton Homes, and we'd likely need to put out an RFP, and my dear friend Scott Miller over there would probably be helping us with this at some point, and see if we can get like a bulk purchasing agreement or something like that. But there's no reason it wouldn't work. And you could implement a version. All of these, you don't actually have to implement it with public money. There is potential to do this without any public money.
So you're talking about a situation where they basically buy their own home.
Yep, or they say, I want to upgrade it, I want to participate in this program, and, can you help me to do it? And that would be where the APCHA board said, did you want to assist with keeping these within the maximum category value?
Yeah, I would want to really take a look at the pros and cons of that separately from the replacement units that really need upgrading. Because at the point the money is spent, whether it's public money or whatever, not to keep it in category, the newer unit's going to start appreciating by our things, but the physical unit starts depreciating right away too. And so are we just giving someone a new appreciation base for a home that they're going to sell 15 years later that's back down to good or decent condition?
And
Yeah, so I want to look at the pros and cons.
And
all I'm saying.
I think that would be one of the questions for the board is, I think Rachel makes a really good point, and given that, and that somebody can go and do this today.
They can do it today on their
if they
own.
want. Should we just not add this into a pilot program, keep it separate?
I would keep it separate in a pilot program myself, and if we look for incentives or perhaps some small way to make it easier, help somebody upgrade who wants to and has that capacity, I'd be all for it. But I'm not so sure. I mean, you look around the larger inventory, we've got a lot of units outside the mobile homes that are, medium level, and they're going to start saying, wait a second, these people are getting to replace their homes, get a new appreciation base, and their place is starting to deteriorate, decay as it does, everything does. And I'm still stuck here, and no one's offering to replace and upgrade my stuff while I'm still living in it and still own it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Rachel. Okay, so we're
Over.
we're
Sorry
a little
about
bit
that.
over time here, but Kelly and then Skippy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand that a little bit because it sounded like Diane said that this was already possible for people. So I wasn't clear if somebody like right now self-elected to replace their mobile home, if they would automatically, get the maximum resale for that category level.
I think this is Cindy's, Cindy has worked with folks on replacing their mobile homes.
Most of them have been through resale. They have sold. And they've had to, and they've had to stick with that maximum category. We had somebody in Aspen Village where there actually is a category 3 unit. And of course, there's the maximum price for category 3 single family is a lot less than a category 5. So they did end up having to go over, but we couldn't go over what the maximum price was. So we adhere to that maximum price, but we do look at what their current value is, without really, it's difficult because when you put a brand new home on there, you don't have 2 homes on there. So how do you really give a value of a home that is no longer there? And that hasn't been easy for us to do. Most people have, we get brand new homes and it's been under the 636. It's been probably around 500,000 is what we've hit for most of the brand new homes at Woody Creek, or a little bit under that. So, it hasn't been where it's been a concern for us at this point in time. But that is something that has been hard for us to try to figure out is, you don't have 2 homes there anymore. How do you value what was there, what they bought, what appreciated, but now they've removed and they put a brand new home on there? And if anybody can help with regards to that, believe me, I sure would like that, because it's a hard decision for us to make when putting a value on a brand new home.
Skippy, did you have a comment?
That's what you were speaking to about the property separate from the house.
Yes, yeah, I did. Just a quick couple things before we break, and this is really great progress. I was just going back and kind of running the numbers and thinking holistically about what that ask is, because I've said, I know Rachel brought this up, we're both willing to go to bat with our boards, and we don't even have to go to bat. Our boards have already said they support putting money in, like fix the roof before you buy a new couch. But looking at this, there's $500,000 here. There's 23 units that are on the other side of this equation. So to balance it even would be about a $20K bump per unit. That's option 1. Option 2 is the $500,000. Doesn't seem like a lot, but with roughly 1,600 ownership units, it's 50X. We're looking at, if it's parity, and there's probably reason to think these are more expensive, not less, because it's category 5 and mobile, but assuming they're the same, it's about a $25 million price tag, probably over something like 25 years. So it probably looks like $1 million on average a year, just so we're, have something to think about before the next 2 meetings. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone to consider. And then I just want to say thank you to staff. I very much support this moving forward. We can play around the edges. It's going to be imperfect. That's sort of the point of the test. But we need to get this rolling. We need to start catching these first turns, and then we need to scale this to our entire system really as quickly as we can responsibly do it. And so I just really thank you guys for putting something forward that is complex and distilling it down. So this has my support moving forward. The last little thing I'll just mention is, we've kind of been, using some terms interchangeably: standards for sellers, buyer's guarantee. I think that latter one is really what we're doing, right? We're providing a guarantee for buyers in our community, and really a community guarantee. And the standards are how we do it. But I think, starting to talk about it in a unified way as that affirmative buyer's guarantee is probably more on the nose for what we're really trying to deliver.
Thank you, Skippy. So Diane, do you, anything you have what you need from the board?
Yes, I will just share, I will not update the report for December 8th. We'll use the same report. I will plan to kind of start where I started today so that if you have questions or new ideas that have come up, we can talk about those as we go through, and then we'll hit the really hard stuff.
Look forward to it.
Really great.
They're really hard.
It's really good.
Really hard stuff.
Look forward to it. Okay, so we will move to the Board of Directors comments and start with Kelly. Did you have any comments?
Sorry, you caught me eating dinner.
Oh, we'll come back to you. Skippy, did you have any comments?
Only comment is City Council has a housing retreat coming up in early December, and I just encourage any board members to check in. Council's really going to be taking on a very broad look at really getting a lot more out of our existing system and also transitioning to a new one. And we can bring back a report to the board as well, but I just wanted you guys to be aware of that because I think it's going to be very interesting.
Thank you, Skippy. Kelly, did you want to jump in? Nope. Okay, great. John, any comments?
No comment.
Francie?
No, thank you.
Rachel?
A couple of small things. One is, I'm wondering, can we put our board meeting reminders on Outlook Express? We kind of just get the email from Cindy and the packet from Cindy, but other meetings that I go to get scheduled and they show up on your Outlook Express. So I think that would be helpful for us.
Do you get the invites from?
I get the invites from Cindy generally that have the packet, and that's all I get.
Maddie,
You click on
I thought Maddie sent out
it should
the
go on your
invites.
calendar.
Okay, well, maybe I'm just technically not good, but
We'll double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
They-
okay,
yep.
that's all. And the second, Skippy's already talked about the retreat coming up. Part of what we'll be talking about is the lumberyard. And we are working diligently to try to get that designed and get the many issues worked out on it, and then begin an entitlement process. But I just kind of want to put it out there broadly. We're going to need partnership dollars from people who feel like they need affordable housing units for their community or for their employers and things like that. And, I was going to read a letter that I received today from a citizen, but I know we're out of time and we're going somewhere else, just talking about how dire the affordable housing crisis is for them. I mentioned this to others. I went to City Market to do some grocery shopping last week. Both the deli and the meat counters had closed before 2 o'clock because they didn't have enough people to staff them. So everyone going in that night thinking they were going to pick up a piece of fish for dinner wasn't, and it's an ongoing problem. But again, it's just, we aren't going to have the money to pull that off by ourselves. And it's just, I think we're going to need to look to a lot of partners and people who would like to buy in or create more units have to think about what resources they have to be able to put into that, or how to get further resources to put into it in the future with elections coming up in 2022. Thank you.
David?
Nothing.
Okay, just thank you to staff. That was a great presentation.
Really nice.
That was really well done.
Thank you.
So I don't have anything else to add there. So look for a.
I would make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402 4B, conference with the authority's attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, and E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. The specific item of discussion involved is the Centennial Owners Association versus APCHA et al., case number 2015CV0301582.
I'll second.
Motion from Rachel and second from Francie.
Francie
can't
can't second
second
it.
Just pretend it was.
I'll
Kelly.
second.
Second from Kelly.
Second
Sorry.
from the county.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, John? John?
John?
Roll call.
Yes, sorry, I had to find my mouse.
That's okay. Carson?
Yes.
David?
Yes?
Rachel?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, we'll
So,
take a
5
short
minutes?
break to
Set up the right room.
set up the executive session.
Recording stopped.
Perfect.
Hey, Matt, sorry.